2022 was an interesting year for my VR journey. VR is still in its infancy, its trial and error make it up as you go along phase. The majority of gamers have not yet taken the plunge into the universe of VR. Some still think it's a gimmick, some think it's just too much of a hassle and not worth the effort. These skeptics aren't entirely wrong though. I can see devs still experimenting with these genres, control options among other things, and admittedly, starting a game in VR isn't something I generally look forward to doing. I still prefer to treat video games as a time to relax and unwind, and strapping on a VR headset, well, there really is nothing relaxing and comfortable about that. Then the immersion I experience through VR gaming, while greatly appreciated, isn't an investment I'm always willing to make. I'm talking about playing standing up, crouching, ducking, turning, manually doing everything like reloading, climbing motions, the list goes on. But with all of that said, VR has still become one of my preferred genres, if it can even be classified as a genre. But yeah, it is still one of my preferred ways to play a video game, and I've said it many times and will say it again, everything is better in VR. More is required from players looking to experience this better, but much like exercising, eating healthy and saving, it feels uncomfortable at first, but like everything else, you'll get used to it. And the benefits and rewards makes it a worthy sacrifice. This isn't a list created by research based on popular opinion, polls, or anything like that. This is my personal opinion of the best VR games I reviewed in 2022. So you will see games made before 2022, and you most certainly will see games that you either never saw before, never heard of, and maybe even some you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But this is a reflection of my general personality. I'm always rooting for the underdogs. Let's get this list started. Here are the top 10 VR games I reviewed in 2022. Now, while I'm into no sports at all, I mean, if it wasn't all over social media and the people in the streets talking about it, I would not have known the World Cup even started or ended. I simply have no interest in sports, hence the lack of sports games featured on this channel. But Forever Pool, much like the other games I've played in the Forever franchise, is simply genius. I have no idea what the process is like over at Forever Games, how they come up with the mechanics for their games. And while Forever Bowl and darts are, I guess, no-brainers, the way Forever Games simulated holding and using a pool stick in VR was so intuitive, so logical. While I've never played another pool game in VR, I simply can't imagine a better control scheme. Lining up a shot, taking the shot, the physics behind the accuracy of your shot. So well done. All the other aspects of Forever Pool are great. The arcade-like approach to the sticks you can unlock and use, the YouTube jukebox where you can play whatever kind of music floats your boat, the pass and play feature where you can use one headset for a virtual pool party, the online aspect, it all came together flawlessly. But this is the Forever Games way. They're clearly a bunch of passionate developers who are doing this for more than a paycheck. Wave shooters are up there as one of my favorite genres in VR. While many complained during the early years of VR, saying there were too many wave shooters, as I suspect, that was one of the easiest genres to conceptualize in VR, particularly stand-in-place wave shooters. I loved most I played, starting out on the PSVR. Not only were they perfect for the PSVR's controllers, but they just felt really perfect in VR. I found myself having one hell of a time in wave shooters most gave a bad review score. So when I got a key for Bionic Hunter from the same developer responsible for Mutated Virus, it was an easy sell. This isn't a stand-in-place wave shooter. It has remarkable visuals for an Indie Quest 2 port, it has a light story, the controls are buttery smooth, it's got pretty good creature designs, and the dev is constantly updating it. Bionic Hunter has a Doom feel to it as well, while still having its own identity and not coming off as a mere clone. I had a good time with Bionic Hunter and do look forward to playing Animos Studios' next title.
Good job, soldier. We won the battle, but not the war. The battle will continue.
While still in development, Eragon certainly earned its place on this list. Eragon isn't an easy sell. It's basically an adults-only RPG, so at first glance, most will write it off as just another X-rated Steam cash grab, but it's so much more than that. Eragon is actually shaping up to be an excellent VR RPG. The devs didn't simply focus on the tits and ass portion of Eragon. It's not created just for sad, lonely, lifeless losers. is created for actual gamers, with good RPG mechanics, great anime-styled visuals, a story filled with potential so far. Yeah, from the little I played in this prologue, I'm going to have to say Eragon is a real first-person action RPG, and when it's finally completed and released, I suspect it's going to be one of the top-selling underground VR RPGs, period. I say underground because the fact that there's some seriously strong sexual content in this one, I can't see it going too far mainstream.
So, what do you think?
While I may get there someday, as it stands, I'm not a fan of the roguelike or light genre. I'll play roguelikes given to me for review purposes, and I won't allow my slight bias to mislead me, but roguelikes and lights just aren't my thing, generally. It has a lot to do with my personality. Other than essential quality of life practices like exercising, eating right, meditating, and so on, I really do not like repetition. I don't like repeating things, doing the same thing over and over, turning back and such. And this is the main premise of the genre. But every now and then, I meet up on a game in said genre that really hooks me, and Mothership Forge happens to be one of these games. Mothership Forge has this gimmick, or let's say mechanic, where you can stack gun parts to create the most bizarre creations. And while I didn't find this mechanic appealing before playing, it all made sense once I got started. Less than an hour in, and I got the appeal. And it was more than just the weapon stacking. Mothership Forge has a truly captivating gameplay loop. This is one of those roguelites where the benefits of the try and try again mechanic, you can feel it working in your favor. The more you play it, the stronger you get and the easier the game becomes. I've played roguelikes and lights before where this, although should have been the case, just wasn't. Mothership Forge has an okay story, decent cartoon-like visuals, good voice acting, and an overall high fun factor. It deserves its number 7 spot on this list.
It's time to celebrate! Hylas, fire up the old confetti machine!
Much like wave shooters, walking sims fit nicely in VR, particularly creepy horror walking sims. Now, I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into when I started up Lost in Abyss, but I was glad I did. It's pretty janky with lots of room for improvement, but what the devs did with what they had is admirable. This is an incredibly creepy experience. The way horror was handled here definitely made this worth experiencing. The jump scares were effective, the visuals added to the overall atmosphere, the audio was equally unsettling, and although a bit incoherent, the story in its own vague way added to the immersion. The puzzles were no brain exercises, the duration was short, there was no smooth turning, but Lost in Abyss delivered well regardless. I love the racing genre, and although much like the fighting genre, I play a lot less than let's say 20 years ago. Rise Race the Future is a game I'm glad I got my hands on. I first got it on the Switch, and as underpowered as that console is, Rise still looked impressive and felt great. I didn't play it much though. Don't think I even completed 2 races on the Switch version. But when I saw that it had a VR mode on PC, I immediately contacted the devs for a review key, and I was not disappointed. While the VR version was clearly not the primary interest of the devs, it was a great afterthought. The controls are as tight as the flat version, the visuals are great, the music works, and the overall gameplay is shot up several notches in VR. It needs a cockpit view, but I played through most of it in third person and it was still a top-tier arcade-styled VR racer. Great job, VD Dev. Maybe it's age, as I can confidently guess that Lost Recipes isn't the kind of game or experience that's on too many top VR lists. But I really love this game. Maybe it's my love for cooking and traveling, as I do my best to learn something from each country I visit, especially on the culinary side. I got some great recipes and techniques from time spent in Hawaii, Ghana, Brazil, and many other places I've traveled to. I've even learned a thing or two from Billy Mitchell while doing a few features for him in the US. So, a game like Lost Recipes is a given. It's in VR and explores various cultures and felt pretty accurate. It's like you could prepare a meal in Lost Recipes, then take what you did in game to the actual kitchen, add your own touch to it, as I always do, and there you have it. An actual meal prepared from a recipe and a technique you learned in a video game. Some may argue that Lost Recipe isn't really a game, more a sim or an experience, but it is a game, a totally stress-free game, but still, It's a game, and one I had a great time with. I really appreciated the unexpected direction Shell Games went with this one. From games like I Expect You to Die to this, nice.
Aren't you glad that wasn't too hard?
Much like Rise Race the Future, much like the racing and fighting game genre, Contractors VR kinda reignited my love for military first-person shooters. I haven't played a Call of Duty game since Black Ops 3 or a Battlefield game since Battlefield 5. And it's not simply because they're all just more of the same, which they are. It's just another genre I outgrew. There's nothing really wrong with the genres. Racing, fighting, military first-person shooters, they're fine, but they're much like parties and hanging out. I simply lost interest. But I've said it many times before, everything is better in VR, and military first-person shooters are no exception. To not be restricted, to be always looking where your gun is pointed, manual reloads, manual throwing of grenades. There are so many elements to a VR first-person shooter done right, and Contractors VR is a perfect example. The devs are also always working on improvements. The mods are so impressive. The only thing I could possibly ask for is a single-player campaign. As much as Contractors relit that PvP military first-person shooter flame for me, I still prefer a single-player campaign. I really love my own company and alone time, so the day Caveman Studio adds a single-player campaign to this, well, let's just leave it at, I'll be one happy gamer. Ivanovich Games really impressed me with 1976 Back to Midway. The way they merged this retro 2D shoot 'em up with VR was genius. I can tell Ivanovich Games are really passionate about this particular thing, and it's further evident in 2076 Midway Multiverse. 2076 is a huge improvement over an already good game. They took techniques from 1976 and really doubled down. The creative approach to switching from a 2D side-scroller to a first-person VR shooter was seamless. With beautiful visuals, creative boss battles, great audio design, and overall near-perfect gameplay elements, this nod to retro Gradius-like shooters of the past earned its place on this list.
There it is! Born in hell! Yeah, okay, we're already in hell, but you get my point.
The first Warhammer game I played was Age of Sigmar Tempest Fall, and this was an interesting way to be introduced to the Warhammer universe. My first time playing a Warhammer game was in VR, and if I reviewed that game in 2022, best believe it would have been high on this list as well, because I was new to Warhammer. I even said a few inaccurate things in that review, as I knew nothing of the lore. I didn't know that the Age of Sigmar universe wasn't the same as 40k, among other things. But I'm grateful for the introduction. Not only did I love Tempest Fall, flaws and all, but it had me exploring what has now come to be my favorite video game franchise, Warhammer. I played several flat Warhammer gems, some of which I'm still working my way through, but I was also led to this amazing gem, Warhammer 40k Battle Sister. At the time I reviewed Battle Sister, I said it was my favorite Quest 2 game, and that my opinion may change due to the Quest's expanding library, but it's still my favorite Quest 2 game, and VR game period. Battle Sister was one truly incredible experience. With great Quest 2 visuals, a compelling story, smooth gameplay mechanics for most part, a satisfying audio presentation all around, and a decent wrap time with no overly frustrating boss battles or puzzles to solve, just one really well-balanced experience, with even some replay value through its multiplayer component. When playing most games, no matter how much I like it, I look forward to the end credits, and once there, I do not revisit, or even care for a sequel. I have a I'm glad that's over with time to move on attitude to most games, but if a sequel was released tomorrow for this, I'd drop all I was doing to check it out. I have grown to love Warhammer, and although I know, in the Warhammer universe, mankind are the bad guys, and I generally frown on religion and the zealots that follow it, but I'm still captivated by Warhammer on a whole. The lore is truly entertaining, and I've become easily immersed in any and every Warhammer title I've played so far, although the common consensus is that most Warhammer games are trash. Well, I have yet to experience a bad Warhammer game, but I haven't played a ton and I am aware that in time I may retract that statement. But for now, Warhammer is my go-to franchise, and Warhammer 40k Battle Sister is indeed the best VR game I reviewed for 2022.
Only by decisive action and unshakable faith will mankind prevail.
Now, as with every top list video I've produced in the past, I'll say the same thing. I know my opinions are unpopular, but that's never a deciding factor when making a list or doing a review. I mean, if you watch my videos, that should be a given. I'm certain many disagree with my opinions on games like Zero Caliber and perhaps even the recently released Aspire 2. But I didn't start this channel to fit in. Fitting in does not, nor will it ever work for me. I started the Lab Video Game TV back in 2003 based on a need to see things done my preferred way, my way. I watched shows like Extended Play on ZDTV, X-Play on G4 TV, and that TV channel's many shows, and always thought, this is great, but I'd do it differently. And instead of being just another whiny, entitled consumer, instead of complaining, I made my own. With that said, I am certain many will disagree with my list, but a lot of the games the masses gravitate to and that are added to the cookie cutter once you've seen one, you've seen them all, top list year-end videos, a lot of these popular and preferred titles I did not play. Some are sitting in the cloud, not even installed. I have not played RE4, as I have no interest in playing that again, regardless of it being better or different in VR. I have not played Saints and Sinners either, and a few others I know that are leaving you scratching your heads asking what the fuck. These are the games I reviewed for 2022, and that's all there is to it. Feel free to list in the comment sections your favorites of 2022. I'd love to know, particularly those unique underdogs.
Alright, let's start with Shake. It's a simple citrus salad.
Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, should you be so inclined. If on the other hand I found a way to piss you off with my unpopular opinions, then hey, feel free to express your displeasure with a non-sub, dislike, or feisty comment, whatever it takes to make you feel vindicated, partner. Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.
Anointed One, you have returned, and what glorious chaos you have brought us.